Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you are. Hello, thank you for watching my videos. It's Mike, it's February 7th, 2010, and here's some of the interesting stories going on this week. Well, of course, this weekend we had the G7 finance ministers meeting up in the middle of nowhere up on Baffin Island, up in Canada, the north of Canada. And apparently they were going to eat seal meat, although evidently the European members decided they would not partake of the local delicacy of seal meat. Although I think they may have eaten the caribou stew. Caribou's quite nice. I've had some when I was up in Sweden once, although they call it reindeer there. Yes, I have eaten Rudolph. Okay, some of the other things that happened up at the meeting there. G7 officials promise continued stimulus. Timothy Geithner and all the rest of them came trotting out saying that, yes, we will continue the stimulus as long as we have to, although the European Central Bank President Jean-Claude Trichet, or whatever, came out and saying, our big deal right now is, of course, Greece, and we're not going to let this debt crisis in Europe overtake us. Now, of course, that's the big story this week. What's actually going on in Greece? Of course, the other thing from the G7 was that, and I've linked the article, there is no need for the IMF to bail out the eurozone. We'll look after ourselves. Well, I do hope they've spoken to the Germans, because the Germans are very against bailing out Greece, and indeed any of the other pigs, as they like to call them. Now, why pigs? Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain are technically considered part of pigs, although it can be expanded to include Italy, so you get two eyes in there. But anyway, Ireland's already starting to sort out their mess, doing some massive cuts in public spending, which is not going down terribly well with the populace. Greece is contemplating doing the same thing and have announced that they need to cut public spending. And of course the unions are already planning massive demonstrations across Greece. Of course, you must remember, in Athens, these are the kind of people that tend to blow things up outside banks and so forth. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some minor uprisings across Greece. I've linked a number of articles about Greece and the whole crisis in Greece. The biggest thing, of course, is that the European Commission has come out and said they're going to trot out Article 121, and they're going to say, of the Lisbon Treaty, and they're going to say, Greece, get yourself sorted out, or we'll do it for you. So Greece have a month to provide a working plan as to how they're going to reduce their deficit. Now, the biggest deal isn't, of course, that there's deficits and all this stuff, because that's happening all over the world. The biggest deal, as far as I can tell, is that the European Commission is actually starting to use some of the new powers in the Lisbon Treaty in a rather nasty way. Effectively, Article 121 lets the European Commission tell Greece what to do. Now, Greece is just the test case. Let's see what happens. The same thing could, of course, happen in any of the European Union countries, including the UK. If the UK's deficit gets quite bad, and bond markets react badly to the UK, we could see the same sort of thing happening in the UK, where the European Union basically tells the UK what to do. Oh, that'll be fun. So, a couple of other articles along the same lines. After Greece, what's next? Well, you have Spain and Portugal. Spain isn't so bad. Their deficit really, on the relative scale of things, is not so bad, and neither is Portugal. But Portugal has, they've just gone through a little bit of a political spin there. The ruling party, the minority government, was putting forward their budget, and they put forward a rather austere budget. The opposition parties were not happy with this, and they voted it out. Late Friday afternoon, about 5 to 5 UK time, they decided that actually we're not going to go with the minority government. The minority government has effectively lost confidence, or rather the Parliament has lost confidence in the minority government, and they're going to put through a different budget. One that includes an additional 50 million euros of spending a year for the next 5 years, or some nonsense like that. I seriously doubt the bond markets will like Portuguese bonds very much. So it's sweeping across. It will carry on into Portugal. Other parts of Europe that you should be watching is France, and possibly the smaller countries like the Netherlands, Brussels, etc. Belgium, because they're going through the same sort of thing. It's just not as publicized. Now, other stories in here. Greece crisis there, but the grace of God goes Britain. Of course, Britain has the same sort of thing going on. Britain's deficit is massive. Relative to Greece, I suspect it's actually larger, although nobody's really playing up on that yet. Soon enough, though. Other places to look in the world are Japan. I won't go into detail on this report as to what's happening over in Japan, but if you want to look at it, there's what's being termed disinflation going on. Effectively, prices are dropping, everything's dropping over there, and which means that salaries are dropping, tax revenue will be dropping, and it'll be much more difficult for the Japanese government to continue paying the interest on their bonds. But I'd say give that a few months. That's not an immediate thing. So I've also linked here, EU sets tough targets for Greece rescue. So this is back to the Article 121 thing. Now if you want to understand what Article 121 is all about, I've linked a couple of really good articles about Article 121 and the kind of powers this could potentially give the European Commission. Indeed, if the governments that is, under monitoring from the European Commission don't actually sort out their financial mess, there is the ability for the European Commission to send, the decision as to what to do, what not to do, to the Court of European Justice, or rather the Court of Justice of the European Union. We'll get the names right. Effectively, the idea being that if the local governments don't actually do it, then the courts can mandate that they do things. Oh, very interesting. Spain seeks to calm fears that it is the next Greece as European markets plunge. I expect to see this over the next few days as well. And I've also linked the article, Portuguese government defeated on austerity measures, basically mentioning this whole idea that the other ruling parties have come in and said, okay, well, we're going to increase the money going to the Azores and wherever else, another 50 million euros a year. Linked an article on The Economist, which goes into great depth behind the European crisis from a different point of view. A lot of people are saying, well, perhaps this will actually start breaking up the European Union. I seriously doubt it. I think the main idea here is to test the powers of Brussels. We'll just have to wait and see. Other things happening. Of course, the big thing, this week in the UK was that the Bank of England called time on quantitative easing, or quantitative easing, whatever. Depends on your pronunciation and whether you're a Canadian or English. Anyway, yeah, so the bank came out and said, we're not going to do any more, we're going to put it on hold. Basically, they've got to £200 billion and they can't spend any more. Not without going back to the government and fiddling back and forth and so forth. So the Bank of England has said they're not going to do any more. Yahoo, great, so that stopped, so there will be no more increase in this quantitative easing. However, one thing that wasn't really played up in the newspapers is the fact that the credit easing, as provided by the Bank of England, will continue. The Bank of England has now transferred that power back to the Treasury, and the Treasury has the ability to spend up to £50 billion buying up corporate debt. So these are things like, corporate paper and things like that, so proper debt from corporations. Now these would be larger corporations, not smaller ones, so this is no help at all to small businesses, but will, if necessary, bail out larger businesses if they start to run into financial difficulty. They can basically issue their own debt, their own bonds of sorts, and the government can buy it. They're not really, playing this up because it does actually kind of mean an additional £50 billion of debt is possible over the next little while. And I've included a letter here basically saying that this asset purchase facility will continue. And Mr. Darling came out and basically sent a letter out saying that under these arrangements the contingent liabilities that may arise from the asset purchase facility will apply to any losses that may arise on the total purchases made. So corporate bonds, commercial paper, and secured commercial paper is included in this additional 50 billion pounds. Finally, for the Americans out there, a little article here I discovered over the last little while. 20 reasons why the US economy is dying and is simply not going to recover. Some very interesting things coming. Of course, we have a second wave of foreclosures coming in the States, but there's also an additional, lots of other things they're listing off here. And if you go through all of them, you can see such frightening things as the fact that unemployment is continuing to increase. More people unemployed than ever before. We have over 1 million discouraged workers, which is the worst you've had since 1949. And there is depression in some cities. So there you go. Everyone have a good week. Peace, love, understanding. Think about things. I'll speak to you again soon.